He dropped out of school at the age of 11. He started with a $100 loan from his own mother. People called him an illiterate brute. Feared, hated, ruthless. Yet when he died, he had more money than the entire United States Treasury. Before Rockefeller, before Henry Ford, there was one man, the original, the ruthless, the unstoppable. Cornelius Vanderbilt, the man who was richer than the U.S. government. Some men are born into wealth. Others build it from absolutely nothing. Cornelius Vanderbilt built it from $100. No education, no connections, no mercy, just an unbreakable, unstoppable will to win. Welcome to ChronosX Secrets. This is the complete story of Cornelius Vanderbilt, the original robber baron. Chapter 1. The Boy Who Quit School. Early 1800s, New York Harbor, United States of America. A boy of just 11 years old walked away from school forever. His name was Cornelius Vanderbilt. His ancestors had come to America as servants, with nothing. No wealth, no status, no promised future. But Cornelius was different from the very start. At just 11 years old, he went to work on his father's ferry boat in New York Harbor, transporting goods and people across the river. He watched, he learned, and he planned. And then, at 16 years old, he made his move. He wanted to start his own ferry business. He needed a boat. He had no money. His mother had $100 in her entire savings. She agreed to loan it to him. But there was one condition. He had to clear a large and brutally rocky field so that she could farm it. The field was massive. The rocks were endless. But Cornelius looked at every problem differently. He convinced every local kid he could find to help him clear the field. Their payment, free rides on his future boat. Together, they cleared the entire field. His mother handed him the $100, and Cornelius Vanderbilt bought his first boat. He was 16 years old, and his empire had already begun. Chapter 2. The Strategy That Built an Empire. Cornelius began transporting passengers and freight between Staten Island and Manhattan. The competition was fierce. Every other boat owner was fighting for the same customers. But Cornelius had one weapon that nobody else could match: price. He undercut every single competitor. He always offered the cheapest fares on the market. Customers came flooding in. He repaid his mother's loan immediately, and then he reinvested every single profit straight back into the business. He bought another ship, then another, then another. Soon, he had a whole fleet of ships. People began calling him the Commodore. And then, the War of 1812 changed everything. The American government gave him a lucrative contract to transport soldiers on his ships. His wealth exploded overnight. Chapter 3. The Ruthless Competitor. By the late 1820s, Cornelius saw the future before anyone else did. Steamboats, faster, more powerful, more efficient than anything he had used before. He sold his old ships and invested everything into steamboats, and he used the exact same strategy that had always worked for him: the absolute lowest prices on the market. He even began offering some boat trips completely free of charge. He did not care about short-term losses. His logic was simple and devastating. As long as he had more money than his competitors, he could bankrupt them by taking all their customers. And once they were out of business, he would raise his prices to profitable levels. It worked every single time. At one point, a large steamboat company operating on the Hudson River paid Cornelius $100,000 simply to stop operating his ships in their territory. For them, paying him off was cheaper than competing with him. Cornelius took the money and grew even bigger. To Cornelius Vanderbilt, business was not just business, it was war, and he intended to win every single battle. Chapter 4. The Gold Rush Genius. In 1849, gold was discovered in California. What followed was the largest mass migration in American history. Hundreds of thousands of people rushing toward California, desperate to get rich. But California was not yet connected to the rest of the country by railroad. Everyone needed a boat to get there. And Cornelius Vanderbilt saw the opportunity immediately. Every other boat company was using the route through Panama. Cornelius found a completely different route, through Nicaragua, 600 miles shorter than the Panama route. He negotiated an exclusive deal with the government of Nicaragua. His trips were faster, his prices were cheaper, and he attracted far more customers than any competitor. While hundreds of thousands of people searched desperately for gold, Cornelius Vanderbilt was collecting money from every single one of them. Chapter 5. The Most Dangerous Letter Ever Written. In 1853, at nearly 60 years old, Cornelius Vanderbilt took a vacation for the very first time in his life. He bought a magnificent yacht and set off on a tour of Europe with his family. He left 2 trusted business partners in charge of his Nicaragua operation, men named Morgan and Garrison. They betrayed him completely. They secretly made a deal with the new president of Nicaragua to take away Cornelius's exclusive rights and give them to themselves instead. When Cornelius found out, he wrote them a letter, one of the shortest and most terrifying letters in business history. "Gentlemen, you have undertaken to cheat me. I will not sue you. The law is too slow. I will ruin you. Yours truly, Cornelius Vanderbilt." And that is exactly what he did. He immediately set up a rival transport company nearby, offered impossibly low prices, stole every customer. He refused to transport passengers to or from Nicaragua, creating a complete blockade. He convinced neighboring countries not to recognize the new government, and then he helped start an actual war to completely overthrow the government of Nicaragua. He had promised to ruin them. He kept that promise. Chapter 6. The Railroad Empire. At nearly 60 years old, most men begin thinking about retirement. Cornelius Vanderbilt was just getting started. He saw the future again, and this time it was railroads. More and more goods and people were moving by train, not by boat. Cornelius sold every single ship he owned and invested everything into railroads. At this time, railroads across America were scattered and independently owned, disconnected, inefficient. Cornelius began connecting them all, building one massive interconnected railroad network across the entire country. He built the largest railroad in the entire world, a complete monopoly on American railroad transportation. Same strategy, same ruthless reinvestment, same unstoppable result. He was now the most powerful man in all of America. Chapter 7. The Wealth and the Darkness. Cornelius Vanderbilt had become the richest man in the entire world, yet he lived relatively modestly. Almost every dollar he made went straight back into the business, but behind the extraordinary success there was deep darkness. Cornelius was a terrible husband and a deeply neglectful father. At one point, he had his own wife briefly committed to an insane asylum, and later he committed one of his own sons to an asylum as well, simply because the boy was having epileptic fits, which Cornelius saw as a sign of weakness. To Cornelius Vanderbilt, weakness was unforgivable in anyone, even his own family. Even as the wealthy elite of America mocked him for his lack of education, for his rough working-class manner, he kept building, he kept winning. Chapter 8. The Final Years and the Legacy. In the final years of his life, Cornelius Vanderbilt turned some of his vast wealth toward philanthropy. He donated $1 million to establish a university, Vanderbilt University, still one of the most respected universities in America today. At the time of the donation, it was the largest charitable gift in the entire history of the United States. But his health was failing. Even bedridden and weakened, he was still Cornelius Vanderbilt. When journalists gathered outside his house to report on his illness, he had to be physically restrained from going outside to attack them. In January of 1877, Cornelius Vanderbilt passed away. He was 82 years old. His fortune at the time of death was $100 million. Adjusted for inflation today, that would be worth over $200 billion. At the time of his death, he reportedly held approximately 1/9 of all the currency in circulation in the United States, more money than was held in the entire United States Treasury. From a $100 loan from his mother to a fortune worth $200 billion today, from a boy who quit school at 11 to the richest man in the entire world. He was hated by many, feared by all, but even his bitterest enemies had to admit one thing: he connected America through sailboats, through steamboats, through railroads. He shaped the American economy more than any entrepreneur who had come before him. $100, one unstoppable will, one extraordinary legacy. Thank you for watching ChronosX Secrets. If this story moved you, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications because the secrets of the past are closer than you think. We'll see you in the next one.